The storm should have died generations ago. That was what the elders used to say, whispering it like a warning passed down from those who survived the first wave. They called it the Red Storm, though no one alive had ever seen its true beginning. It was older than the ruins, older than the fractured cities, older than the silent machines half buried in rust beneath the dust of a broken world. The sky above the wasteland still held a faint crimson scar, as if the storm had never truly left, only slept. But on the 6th day of the season of winds, when the horizon darkened in a shade no dusk had ever held, every person in the settlement of Greyhold felt the air shift. The children playing near the metal fences froze. The traders glanced up mid-bargain. The guards on the watchtower, hardened by a lifetime of storms, quietly gripped their rifles. The sky was turning red again. Lyra Kael was halfway through repairing the water filters when she noticed the change in the light. It wasn't the soft glow of sunset. This was deeper, thicker, like the world itself was bleeding through the sky. Her pulse quickened. Memories rushed back, her mother's voice trembling, her father locking the doors the night the storm took half their village. Lyra had been only 9, but the sound of the red storm had never left her, the roar like 1,000 machines screaming in unison. Her tools slipped from her hand. Not again. She ran to the lookout cliffs, boots kicking up dust as the wind rose in sudden violent gusts. When she reached the ridge, the sight nearly drove the breath from her lungs. The red storm was reborn. The sky churned in spirals of crimson electricity, clouds folding inward like a colossal opening eye. The storm stretched across the horizon, wider than she remembered, pulsing with an energy that made the ground tremble beneath her feet. It was as if something ancient and furious had awakened after a long slumber. A low rumble echoed from the sky, distant but growing. The storm was moving. The settlement alarms began to wail. People poured into the streets. The elders shouted for evacuation protocols, though all of them knew the truth. No one outran the red storm. They survived it if they were lucky. Or they didn't. Lyra sprinted down the ridge. She knew where she had to go. Not to the shelters, not to her home, but to the tower archives buried beneath the central square. For years she had studied the fragments left behind by the old world. Broken servers, decayed recordings, half-readable blueprints. Pieces of a civilization that had once commanded the sky instead of fearing it. And among those fragments was a single file she had never been able to open. A file labeled Protocol Phoenix. She had always believed the red storm was no natural disaster. The intensity, the radiation, the repeating 40-year cycle, none of it matched the patterns of weather. Something else fueled it, something engineered, and Protocol Phoenix might be the key. The wind howled behind her as she reached the metal doors of the archive. Dust whipped around her in spirals. She slammed her palm against the scanner. The old machine beeped in protest, its screen flickering, before the heavy doors creaked open. Inside, the stale air welcomed her like the breath of a tomb. Rows of decayed terminals lined the walls. Moss-covered broken screens. Wires hung like skeletal vines. Lyra rushed to the central console, her console, the only one she had managed to revive enough to process data. She powered it on, praying the backup cells still had enough charge. The lights flickered. The system hummed weakly. Then the screen came alive. Lyra typed the command to open the Phoenix file. The console churned, decoding, reconstructing, fighting through corrupted layers of a long-dead system. Outside, thunder exploded through the sky. The storm was closer now, the walls shuddered. Dust fell from the ceiling. The screen blinked. Protocol Phoenix activated authorization required. A voice behind her made her whirl around. Authorization code Kepler 1139. Lyra froze. Standing in the doorway was Elder Rowan, the oldest man in Greyhold, usually too frail to walk without assistance. But now he stood tall, his posture rigid, eyes sharp and glowing faintly in the dim red light. "Elder Rowan?" Lyra whispered, gripping the console. "How did you—" "You were not meant to open Phoenix," he said, stepping forward. "But it seems the storm has awakened ahead of schedule." The ground shook. A deep, pulsing roar rolled through the archive like a living thing. "What are you talking about?" Lyra demanded. "What is Phoenix? Why does it know your code?" Rowan's eyes softened, not with regret, but with ancient memory. "Because, child, I was alive before the storms began." The words hit her like a blow. Impossible. Rowan was old, but no one in Greyhold was older than the first storm. The red storm had appeared centuries ago, long before the settlement's founding. But Rowan's expression told her otherwise. The red storm wasn't a weather event, he said. It was retaliation, Lyra's breath caught. Retaliation for what? For breaking the sky. He stepped beside her, placing a trembling hand on the console. Sometime before the collapse, our civilization built a quantum energy grid in the upper atmosphere, an artificial web that powered the entire world. We believed we had mastered the storms, the climate, even the fabric of the sky, but we were wrong. The grid destabilized. The backlash tore the climate apart. The red storm was born from the death of our own achievement. Lyra swallowed hard. So the storm is a machine? No, Rowan said. It is the scar of a machine, a wound that never healed. Outside, the crimson glow flooded the archive through the narrow windows. The storm was almost upon them. The roar grew louder, vibrating in Lyra's bones. What does Protocol Phoenix do? She asked. Rowan gave her a sad, tired smile. It gives the world a second chance. He typed the final command. The console flashed warnings. Massive energy readings, atmospheric disruption, activation of dormant satellites buried beneath centuries of debris. Phoenix wasn't a weapon, it was a reset. A system designed to collapse the red storm's remaining energy into a single pulse and dissipate it, once and for all. But the cost was devastating. It will destroy everything still powered by old-world technology, Rowan said quietly. Every grid, every generator, every machine still clinging to life. Lyra stared at him. That includes the settlement. Yes, that includes us, Rowan nodded slowly. Humanity survived once without machines, it can survive again. But the sky will never clear until we let go of what created the storm in the first place. The storm roared outside, so close now that the walls vibrated violently. Red lightning struck near the entrance, showering sparks across the metal. Lyra looked at the console, at the blinking command line awaiting confirmation. Initiate Phoenix when, She thought of the children, the families, the people who trusted her to fix the world's broken scraps. Rowan, if we do this, what if they can't survive the aftermath? His voice trembled, filled with centuries of weight. They survived the first ending, Lyra. They will survive the second, but only if someone is brave enough to choose it. Red lightning cracked across the sky. The archive shook, the storm was seconds away. Lyra drew a breath, steadying her shaking hands. Then she pressed Y. The console erupted in blinding white light. A deep vibration surged through the ground, rising in a harmonic swell that matched the heartbeat of the storm itself. The atmosphere outside convulsed. Crimson clouds folded inward, spiraling into a vortex of collapsing energy. The red storm screamed, ancient, furious, wounded, before imploding into a shockwave of brilliant scarlet light. Then the world went silent. When Lyra opened her eyes, the archive was dark. Every machine was dead. The air was cool and still. She stumbled outside with Rowan's help. Above them, for the first time in living memory, the sky was blue. No red, no storm, just a vast, endless sky reborn from centuries of fear. The settlement stood in stunned quiet. People emerged from shelters, gazing upward with tears streaming down their faces. Lyra felt Rowan's hand rest lightly on her shoulder. You gave them back the world, he whispered. But Lyra felt no triumph, only the weight of what she had ended, and the fragile hope of what might begin. In the days that followed, Greyhold learned to live without the machines that once kept them alive. Harder, rougher, but together. And every morning, Lyra stood on the ridge and looked at the sky, still blue, still whole, touched only by the faintest trace of fading crimson, a reminder of the storm that had haunted the world, and the choice that had finally set it free. The red storm was gone, but the world reborn through its ashes was just beginning.